My name is Zach. I am the product marketing here at Revelator. I'm here to ask the questions and just make sure everything runs smoothly, but it's all about our guests today, José and Alexiomar. I'm very excited to have them today to talk about Latin America. And again, before we start, for those who don't know us, Revelator, we are an independent distribution platform built for independent music businesses with a global team across 5 continents, including LATAM. We work with labels, distributors around the world to help them manage distribution, royalty accounting, rights management, analytics, and payments. And our mission is essentially to give independent labels and artists the tools to build real career on their own term. And yeah, super excited about today's webinar about Latin America. Definitely a region that's seen an explosive streaming growth and definitely moving culture across the world. But saying all of this, I think there's still a lot of challenges across the region. And that's what we're here to talk about today, to help educate the market and the audience. And to help us with that, I'm super happy to have Alexiomar Rodríguez, leading music attorney and founder of Xiola, creator of Seed Academy and Flu, and also José Otero, our very own LATAM account executive here at Revelator, founder of Arista Indie and Topspin Music. So I think we've got the best guests in town to talk about LATAM. So before we start, I'd love to get you guys a bit about your journey into this wonderful music business that we're all in. How did you get started and how you got here today?
Let's please.
Okay, well, on my part, first, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure connecting with you guys and also being able to connect and know Otero. I've been a fan of his work for the last couple of months that I've seen following him on social media. So on my part, I started as a musician in Puerto Rico. I went to music school after regular school, guitar player, playing in the rondalla with other guitar players and mandolins and all of instrumentation, string instruments. I also had my own band growing up and going to church camp and youth camps. Music was part of my life. I grew up listening to Jesús Adrián Romero in Mexico or Daniel Fraire and all of this, the whole pop, rock, Mexican scene, Camila, Rake, all of that, growing up in Puerto Rico, and also having urban music in Puerto Rico as well. So it was a gumbo, it was a mix of different genres and musical influences, and I wanted to be an artist and have my own band. However, I went to university, studied economics. I went on a full ride scholarship as a guitar player. So at least I got to do music for a part of my life and get paid in a sense, and became a lawyer. Right. So studying here in Puerto Rico is just like in the States. Well, I'm actually now in the States in the mainland, but it's the same flow. It's like 4 to 5 years of university or college degree, and then you go to law school. And I did my Juris Doctor, but I still wanted to work with music and be with artists. My brother, my sister, my family is all musician. So that's when I decided to combine my legal background and my own creative experience as a musician and quit my job at one of Puerto Rico's top law firms. I was there on the litigation department for intellectual property, trademarks, copyright, but for corporate America, and decided to just launch my own firm back in 2019. And right now we have a boutique music law firm. We help artists and managers and investors, catalog buyers, close 6 and 7 figure deals while keeping control and ownership without having to sacrifice their own legacy or future. So that's my story.
Thank you. Jose.
My turn. Well, I've been in the industry for 27 years now. I started back in 1998 doing radio. I was a radio announcer back in Mexico. I studied communication, mass media communications, and journey started in radio for the love and passion of music first and most. And then I had the opportunity to grow within that industry, becoming a programmer and then promotions director. And then eventually I started working for a clear channel radio that became iHeartMedia, iHeartRadio. And I had the opportunity to be a vice president of programming. I was running the Latin division for iHeartRadio, creating back in the day, 2011. Well, all the DSPs really started. We started our own application. We produced some pretty cool events, Fiesta Latina, and then I helped with the iHeartRadio Music Festival in Vegas and Jingle Ball in New York and some other cities, and it was like a full 360 experience for me as an honored personality and a programming executive, and involved with all sales teams and the marketing teams and all that, and most importantly, having the opportunity to interact with artists and record labels and managers and my colleagues at other DSPs. So at some point in life, back in 2018, I believe I decided that I wanted to go to the other side of the industry, which is the record label, because I always love to spend a lot of time in the studio, right? That's what I like, and will invite me, of course, because probably they wanted me to play their music on the radio. So that perk of being able to go to the studios and listen to the music before being released, right? And giving my opinions. So I really enjoyed A&R and giving them my input in radio. I was exposed to a lot of research. I did music research for almost 10 years. So I learned a lot about music fans and their appetite and by regions, and just fundamental tool for our programming strategies. So even though I'm not a musician, I learned a lot by with all this people, and pretty much all Latin genres, anything from salsa to regional Mexican to cumbia to pop, alternative, everything. So yeah, back in 2018, I went to Los Angeles and I started my journey on a record label, Saban Music, working also with Universal Music, and I became the SVP of A&R, and I had the opportunity not only to work with Latin artists, but also, other genres. So it's a great for me. I really being a record label side of the industry. And then in 2020, 2022, I believe, my journey. I established Topspin initially as a consulting firm, and then we became distributors, and that's how I connected with Revelator. And I was so happy, honestly, I was so happy with the product and the platform that I thought I needed to tell the world about this platform. And that's how I connected with Bruno and you guys. And that's how my journey started with Revelator. I'm still running Topspin. I created the educational online platform Artista Indie for independent, mainly Latin artists. And it's a newsletter, it's social media, and this is where we are right now.
Love it. Well, thank you both. Yeah, stories, love the background. I think it's fair to say we're all very passionate about music here. So yeah, about how you got into where we are today. But I like to start with, like I said in the beginning, Latin, is seeing an explosion in the last few. I mean, numbers I've seen on Luminate, I think there's something like 7.6% growth over a year. In the US, it was actually like one of the core genre that was leading growth there. Revenues, Latin America jump another 22.5%. In subscription, actually premium subscription also in the region. But I think all of this, there's still a lot of challenges. And I think my first question would be, most common royalties going on collecting in LATAM, and what can artists, labels, and do really close the gaps and properly the catalogs in America?
Well, I would say that performance and mechanical royalties often go unclaimed. They're part of the so-called black box royalties. Also, when I say performance, one of the differences between the US and LATAM and even Spain is that performance royalties, they are only for the publishing side, but also the sound recording side. And that's one of the things that, for example, in the US, when a song it's played on the radio, terrestrial radio, normal radio, it generate master royalties for the performance, right? But does outside of the US. And in the US, you have sound exchange and how it collects on digital performance royalties is like, right? And something, those differences between how some royalties are generated in the US versus how other royalties are generated outside of the US often complicate things, and the reason is sometimes myself as a content creator or trying to educate the market on some of these aspects, I will talk about this from the US standpoint, because although I'm from Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico is part of the US, and the whole legal structure is based on US law. And sometimes we will have, for example, on our YouTube channel, Mexico is the #1 audience we have, and then we have Colombia, and they're going to be asking stuff about, well, how does it work in Colombia or in Mexico or in Spain? And this cross-cultural, like, and cross-geographic relationships, it confuses people, because I will talk about my experience from my side, but we don't have enough people from other countries talking about the between how US law works, and how it works in other places. So I would say that that lack of understanding of how it works is affecting not only identifying what type of royalties I deserve, but also how can I collect my royalties, and thinking that if I'm, for example, registered with Sound Exchange, I'm also registered with the in Colombia, or so that is part of the reason that these are the most common royalties going collected, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it's about education. It's about education, really understanding the difference between the composition royalties and the sound recording royalties, right? If you know that you can get money from those two, and if you're a songwriter, artist, you can ask. There's a lot of material out there to ask, hey, am I getting the money that I need to get from my sound recording, right? Hey, I'm a producer, I'm a songwriter, I collaborated on this track. What type of royalties should I get? And there's information everywhere. It's just really for artists and their teams to have the intention to learn and ask. If you're based in the US, you're based in Mexico, in Colombia, in Spain, pregunten, muchachos, el conocimiento en poder y la información es independencia. Ask.
you don't
Yes.
ask, you don't get. Yes, absolutely. And I think, you both for doing that work, Seed Academy and you, Jose, for many years. I think education is so important, and to really understand how it works. And it's a complex industry. I think it's to not like this gatekeeping attitude, and really share as much as we can. So that's hopefully we can do as a collective. And the contract side, Alex, what are the most common legal blind spots you see for independent artists and in LATAM, and your mind makes a contract future-proof in the region? If there are like a few points you can help understand on the side.
Yeah, I say that I've seen this meme where there's like this graph where you have three types of people. You have on the first side, the person who is starting, they think, oh, you don't need contracts. And you have on the middle side, like the who wants to include, clauses in there. And then you have on the other side, like, hey, contract is just, right. So why I'm saying this, because sometimes, deal is a deal that you actually make and close. And important for what determines if you're doing a future proof contract is the relationship more than the contract. And I will use an example. I is negotiating 6 and 7 figure, right? And sometimes it will happen that although the contract has 50 long, it's in long pages, it has all of the clauses in the world, the relationship between the parties, it's already severed. Like they don't want to work with each other. They will not protect you against the other person having an attitude and the other person just ignoring you or whatever. Because even the act of just working together, somebody can be complying with the contract and still be a pain in the, our first contracts are just a mirror of what you want the reality to be. They're just rules to play the game. So I would say that yes, depending on the situation and the relationship you want to build, or even if you're not So about the relationship, you might want to add more clauses because as you work with more people, you figure out that people are very creative on doing stupid stuff. So you want to create clauses to address that. And that's totally understandable. However, also true that sometimes we need all of those clauses because we know we're entering in a relationship with someone we shouldn't be going into a relationship with. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
if people value the same values, principles, have a vision, mission, have that, then usually that old adage of, we're bond, that's be true regardless of if you have or don't have the longest contract in the world. So future proof deals are relationship proof deals. And obviously, before signing on the dotted line, but just in terms of people that say, okay, well, very philosophical, give me some tactics I want to take home. Well, first of all, you got to know who the party is. If they promise something they can't deliver and you didn't do research about it, I got someone promising $1 million and, the most from muddy waters, like, where does the money coming from? You don't have the numbers, you don't have anything to back up this, so beware. Number two, the obligations. What is, I'm gonna do this for you, you're gonna do this for me. You want to make sure that everything that is important to you is there. Number three, ownership. Who's going to own the intellectual property that is going to be created? The songs, the names, the pictures, all of that. Also, you want to have number four, the payment. It's a compensation structure. I'm going to pay you just a flat fee. We're going to share the revenue this is going to generate. It's going to be from revenue. Is it going to be from profit? Is it going to be from income minus X expenses? Number five, I would say, the duration. That would be like the simplest way of doing the contract. Like what happens if we want to get out? When does it end? And what happens is someone, breach, like those are tactical level elements that you can plugging into your contract. And as you go you're going to want to add more or less clauses into that.
Yeah, I think, former boss always told me that he wouldn't do business with anyone that he couldn't go to have a nice dinner with. And I think that's such a good, it's like at the end of the day, it is a relationship business and we're here to, and having the legal framework is really important, but I agree with you. Relationship is first. If you can't work with on day one, a contract is not gonna take you anywhere. So, yeah, that's such a good point. Yeah, you have a good contract, you have great relationship with the label, and I guess what are the next steps, into like building a independent business, LATAM, like whether it's from artist development or marketing strategy that you've seen working really well, and ask for you both to kind of help us see, once there is the trust, there is the contract, what the moment across the region.
What I'm saying is it's very simple. Work ahead of time, have a release strategy, your ability to act and react yesterday, like super fast, and adjusting in real time. What I've seen is they have established a very well established brand identity, and they invest record labels and management companies that supports their own artist narrative, right? They run fully independently, having operational control of everything. They distribute directly or through platforms like Revelator, of course. They take advantage of new technologies and platforms. They hire people that bridges effectively and efficiently the business side of things and the creative aspect of our industry. That to me is a key component. And they create digital ecosystems around their artists with solid business intelligence strategies, data analytics, and a full understanding of the audience management tactics within platforms like Meta, TikTok, Spotify, YouTube. And this is all before even thinking on doing digital marketing or paid campaigns. Those are the traits that I've seen from recent successful indie labels in LATAM.
Yeah, I think, and also you've touched on data. I think I'd love to get your insight of like how to use data smartly, because I think one danger is like we have data, but we kind of drawn in it. And how do you, as an artist or as a team, kind of choose the right data to look at, if that makes sense, like for you, and how to prioritize the data points in a way, like how to get started with data.
Yeah, to me, it's about data. This game is all about data. Have to build the way major entertainment companies, and I always use Live Nation as an example, but many others, all the labels and build organic and paid consumption across all your content and channels, right? Master the audience management tools from all the platforms that I've mentioned before, right? Learn how to properly build and execute digital advertising campaigns, retarget your audience, and build systems through direct to fans platforms to move people from passive consumption, like editorial playlists, to active consumption, like on demand listening. And if I can use one example that I love, again, from Revelator, skip rates. Skip talks about skip rates and complete rates and sub 30s. And I love that because if you're targeting Mexico, if you're targeting Colombia, and you're promoting any given release, you need to understand that your song is not going to perform equally on the United States versus Mexico. And you need to have the data to back up your marketing decisions, right? So if your skip rates are super low in Mexico and your complete rate on the other side, it's amazing that something's working. But in Colombia or Puerto Rico, that's not the case. Maybe your skip rate is super high for any given reason. And probably your intuition and knowledge of the marketplace will tell you, of course, right? Right now, Mexico is listening a lot to the new indie pop that's happening right now, but that's not the case in the US. They're still very, the sound is very predominant, and it's right. So that's why you're getting your skip rate super high in the US. That's a good example of go to your platform, read the analytics, and make informed decisions around that consumption data. So you might be investing X amount of money in Mexico for this song, but in the US or Spain or Puerto Rico, you may allocate a different type of budget for another song, right? That's the beauty of streaming nowadays, that you have the music out there and you can strategize. You're always thinking, but you can strategize locally utilizing data.
Yeah, love it. And I guess, Alex, same question, but from a different perspective, is when you do catalog deals and looking at the value of valuation of a catalog, or what data are you looking at? Like, what are the data points that matters to you, and how can you assess, I guess, the based on these points?
Yeah, so usually what happens is that when an artist wants to sell their catalog or a producer, the buyer is who ask for the royalty statements for the past at least, 2 years, is like 3 to 5 years, depending on the person who is buying the catalog. And it's also very important, that information, when we are looking for deals for that artist. So for example, we had an artist who first, like, a sheet is like the basis of the deal they're doing, and that includes, for example, the advance the label is willing to give out. And then if we want to change those numbers, if the we receive in the case in terms of catalog acquisition, that would be the letter of intent and the LOI. If we want to change the term sheet or the LOI, we need to change the numbers, right? So we need to either find more information that gives context to the transaction and to the value that artist or his or her catalog it represent, right? And usually when I ask the artist for the royalty statements, they don't even know what this is. And I'm like, just go to your account, your distributor. There you're gonna have some, reports on how much money you're making. It doesn't matter how many streams you have. It's how money you're making, right? That is gonna be the number we're gonna use. And that is why sometimes when I'm doing a deal in from with that is US Latin artists, having most audience in the US, 100,000 streams make way more money than 100,000 streams from other places in Latin America. And usually the artists from Latin America, they want the same amount of advance or the same terms as the US Latin artists. And I have to say, it doesn't make sense for the label or the publisher, because your numbers, although you have more streams or even the same amount of streams, it doesn't represent money, like the same amount of money. And understanding that changes the entire perspective of the negotiation process, because now if you're going into a deal, you're looking to show to the other side how much money you're worth. It's not about likes or comments or, like Jose, the difference metrics that people think are valuable, but the actual metrics that are actually valuable, that happens the same way when you're doing deals. So having your royalty statements, at least that for the, 3-5 years, is going to make a huge difference for me as a lawyer, either if I'm representing you, if you're selling your catalog, or if you are looking for an deal. And the last story I'll share with you is, I got an artist from America, and I was like, okay, well, maybe, usually this a small business in terms of, because of the job he was making and also the audience. We're making $100,000 per month. So that's more than $1 million per year. Okay. I can't believe this story just blew my mind. This was last week. And I was like, who the hell are you guys? Like, what are your numbers for children music, kids music?
Wow.
And we went into their numbers, and they were willing to sell their catalog at about 4x the revenue. So if you're, for example, 1 million, you're willing to sell your catalog for. It's like, do you actually need that money that desperately? Because you're gonna make that amount of money in 4 years. Even if your income drops 20%, you're gonna make the amount of money. And your rights, they're your life plus 70. You want to really sell your catalog. Why? Because they were not aware of how valuable their assets were in terms of the market and in terms of money. And understanding your worth is going to help us pitch a better deal for you in front of catalog acquisition or in front of labels or publishers that are looking for deals.
Wow. Well, yeah. I mean, I think that's always, as you've said it, understanding your worth is exactly that. Is sometimes, unfortunately, you artists and labels understand their catalog because of that. So, and luckily we do have that's a lot more accessible. And again, if you really do the due diligence and the numbers, you will be able to kind of see that probably you're worth more less than you think. So I think numbers don't lie, right? At the end of the day, you can feel things, but always kind of tell the truth about, especially the money side, the worth of catalog. So yeah, I think that's a good story, really. To really remember, and maybe more focusing on the consumption in Latin America. Like, I'd love to understand, the DSPs kind of from other territories, to best approach DSPs, and what are the key DSPs to really kind of focus on in the region to go about building a really good strategy around DSP, obviously releasing, but also and kind of establishing a real around streaming region.
About the fans. It's really about the fans, and guys, DSPs will follow because they do the same. If you favor fans, it's because you're fully aware of the cultural nuances of that region, right? And with that said, it's very important to understand that not all DSPs are consumed equally. Because remember, at the beginning, I told you I started doing radio. Radio had formats. Radio had demographics. You had the alternative rock radio station. You had the romantic radio station, and all of them had like demographics, right? Female driven, male driven, 34, 35, 54. The news, no different for DSPs, right? Spotify has its demographics in Mexico. Spotify, the same company, the same DSPs, has its demographics in London, right? So you need to understand that Apple Music, Amazon Music, Spotify are not equally consumed by the same people in Mexico, for instance, right? And the other thing, 97% of Hispanics here in the United States in 2025 listen to FM radio still. They will tell you. People, they're like, no, what? Radio? Oh, no. No, you do listen to radio, right? We can prove it. So if that's happening here in the States, imagine in Latin America, they're still listening to radio, to certain formats and certain type of artists, right? Because it's all about demographics. So you need to understand your product. You need to have developed your artist identity first and most. You need to understand who your fans are and where they are and where they listen to music. And once you know that, then you'll go to Mexico and start asking, right? And then you're going to start talking to the right people, to the right DSPs, because maybe your genre is not 100% deal for Spotify, but maybe it's a great product for Amazon. Because when you go to Chartmetric right now, if you see the top 20 organic consumption, viral consumption, and you put, side by side, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Apple Music, international driven, pop, Latin pop, legacy music. Amazon, understand how deep I'm going right now, because of the ability of Mexican people to get an Alexa device, the streaming on Amazon in the second strongest, just behind Spotify, right? And the slightly higher, right? The age range is higher than Spotify, but this is all consumption patterns, social economics, right? So the top 20 on Amazon right now is not the same as the top 20 on Spotify, which is mainly driven by regional Mexican and urban music. So if you're doing ballads and you're suffering because, Spotify playing my music, okay, are you talking to the right DSPs? Mexico, maybe in Colombia is different. Maybe in Argentina is different. Spain, pop is super big in Spain, ballads, right? That's not the case for US Latin in the United States. You have to understand your fans. You have to understand your product and your offer and really understand how each DSP works, not only from Apple to Spotify, from region to region, completely different. So you have to partner with companies and people that understand the region and has the footprint to effectively activate your career in that region.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just on that, if you have regional success as an artist in Mexico or Peru or specific territory, and you want to expand internationally, what are the steps to do that? Because it is all about obviously understanding your audience, but there is a point where a lot of artists wants to expand because we live in a global economy and there are opportunities across the world to really build a fan base. But what are the steps in your mind that they need to take, after you've reached that point of like good audience regionally?
Collaborations, music appetite of the internationally, I'm about to say right now, sometimes international creative opportunities lie on your ability to understand the rules and regulations of the music industry, the licensing rules and regulations, right? Not too long ago, I did an interpolation and licensing deal for I Can Get My Eyes Off of You with Pitbull, with one of my artists. It was bilingual, and I had Frankie Valli vocals at the beginning of that song. And the song is called Te Quiero, Baby. I love you, baby, in Spanish. But in order for us to do that, imagine Frankie Valli, Pitbull, and my friend Cheska. That was an international approach to classic. We needed to understand how to license those vocals. We needed to have a deal with Pitbull. We needed to clear the composition, right? And we needed to deal with our producers and the songwriters involved in that adaptation. We needed to clear the translation. It was an interpolation, adaptation, translation. So when you understand your creative opportunities through the glass of copyright, licensing, laws. Get your own Alex and make it happen. Alex, all yours.
No, that's super. You just nailed on all of the points. I would just add a little story about I represent one of the publishers in music in Christian music. I mean in the and that's the story of lives. Like in Christian music, you have generational music. Like one song can last 30 years. Different in different ways. You have interpolation, as you mentioned, remix, congressional, people singing in churches. So one example, we have one of our songwriters slash artists who wanted to enter the Brazilian market. So right now there's a lot of dynamics between Brazil and the US Latin market because there's a lot of songs that are already proven in the US market or in LATAM in general in Spanish. And then you have people in Brazil doing translations of those songs that are already proven and doing their own versions. But that's not the covers, right? They're translations. They have to actually create a new song that it's based on the same melodic patterns and all of that, but the lyrics are going to be different because they have to adapt to the culture and to the language. So one of the things that we started doing those collaborations only on a translation level. So it's like, okay, we're gonna exchange. I'm gonna bring that is already proven to the Spanish market, and we are gonna license you a Spanish song into Portuguese, right? And then the cool part was we flew one of the artist songwriter to Brazil to version of those of the same song in both languages, and both recorded the same song both in Spanish and both in Portuguese. So now the same artist, the two artists now have three versions, same song, and they are moving between the markets and everything done in just a weekend, right? Because you do all of this, the recording is, in their own studios and then put all of that together. And it was done super easy and fast because the people involved understood how licensing works. So we didn't have to explain, everything. They already knew that if we can do it right and then negotiate exclusivity and all of this stuff to make it like your Portuguese version is the official version. So all of the covers are from that version, but we're going to split the revenue share in this way. So since everybody wins, and now it's a model, a template that we can replicate with other artists that want to do the crossover. So that's just a little story, a very elaborate explanation.
I gotta say, I love that. It's funny you mentioned it because I was in Brazil in August for a month, and I had a similar but from the Brazilian side. Basically, Brazilian artists trying to enter a Spanish-speaking country in LATAM, and where approach they were like doing this version, and actually there is a lot of crossover there, and a lot of Brazilian artists are doing extremely well more in LATAM speaking countries. So I love collaboration. I also the kind of creativity behind this, and like you said, everybody wins at the end. It's a wonderful thing. Yeah, it's definitely something that I imagine more common and will happen more as we become more and more global as an industry. But opportunities are already there, so you got to make the most of them now. And just in terms of the trend, in the LATAM music, is there like trends that you're seeing that you think people should be paying attention? But things are obviously changing. There's a lot of from AI to legality around. Is there like a trend that you're seeing that we really should be paying attention right now that maybe we're not thinking about?
I'll go. What I'm seeing right now is artists embracing roots. Period. And this is nothing new. You think of, and I'm referring to Latin artists, right? Look back in time. A lot of big artists. They tropicalize international market. They tropicalize for the international market their original sounds. So in your culture, Bad Bunny, Viva Puerto Rico, but Maná did it before. Right? And everybody, Enrique did it before, Ricky Martin did before. So right now we have a great opportunity of utilizing social media and this all the channels that we have available, cultures, and bring it to the world by unique sound that you identify with as an artist and feel proud of, and show it to the world. Because if you try to duplicate whatever is already working internationally, it's not going to work. And we're seeing with Karim Leon, probably the biggest Mexican artist right now. He goes back to his small town of Hermosillo, and he talks proudly about that region of Mexico while presenting his upcoming show at the Sphere in Las Vegas next year, right? And it's happening. Ricardo Arjona, he's planning a residency in Guatemala. And again, that funny, right? Puerto Rico. I think that's where we're going. And in doing so, embrace your artist identity, hoping that you already have an artist identity to build your narrative around that, and then you're good to go. I think that's about a lot of sounds and before, because we just didn't have access to from other countries like Panama, like El Salvador, like, of course, Puerto Rico and Colombia and Argentina, Chile. There's our music heritage is so rich that we should embrace that into the world.
I couldn't agree more. And it's funny you saying that because, I grew up in France and I always was interested in music from outside of and music. And I'm going to show my age, but back in you would have to go to a record store and there was only so much music you would find. But I think nowadays, because we are living in a world where we can access all this music, I want to hear music that feels different, that's unique. And this is from an international audience perspective. That's what I want. I don't want something that sounds like what I already know. I want something new. So hopefully that's a trend we're going to see more, and because I personally love it, and I think it's all about being true to yourself and going back to the roots seems to work because it's proven. That's working, right?
And I think that's the antidote AI as well. It's like we are seeing that music is going to become commoditized, right? So if something is common, everybody can do it. What is going to be the difference between one person or one project versus another? That happens with lawyers, that happens with doctors, that happens with everyone. I was looking for a shop to create some kind of like an award or recognition to send out to our close 6 and 7 figure deals this year, because I figured that nobody recognizes that closing a deal of that achievement and a milestone for artists if they do it right. In our case, all of our artists keep their masters, 100% of their control, and the contracts are very short, like 1 to 3 years at most. And the thing is that when we were looking for that, my wife, who is leading all the experience thing, it was like 1 or 2 shops that did this, but a lot of people who do this, like a lot of options. So if anyone can do it, we were like, well, how can we identify the best? And it's all about brand. It's all about what is the unique value proposition, what is the story of the person behind, obviously the craftsmanship and everything, but it's also like the story that is around and through the brand of the store in base, right? And I thought the same is going to happen with music. If anyone can create a beat, the difference is going to be what is your story? What is your why? What is the reason you do is going to connect on a human level? And that is something that, although AI music can make you feel something, because recently a song went viral on TikTok, is a song, it's called Saulo. It went like super viral, 500,000 views on YouTube in like a couple of days. And when I heard that, I was like, oh damn, this song is a good song, like regardless of who made it. But it's only that song. And how do you go from a song to connecting with the person? How do you create that Bad Bunny effect or that Taylor Swift effect? It's only gonna be about, by being human and connecting with people or not. So I'm super I agree with Jose for those.
Yeah, and I think also it has to be said that music in bars and clubs in Latin America is really part of the culture, and you can't replicate that. And I think really embracing that part of the culture of really connecting in one place to hear music is a powerful thing that people love, and that's really also your songs and see how it connects to people real way. So I think, again, when I was in how these songs from 50 plus years have an effect on kids to their grandparents is amazing, and it's listening together and experience in a live environment.
And that's a great SAG that I've seen listening, outside of Latin America, and when to impact the region, so I'm seeing a lot of bands from you, for instance, from what I know from Mexico, I'm seeing a lot of like up and coming bands from Europe playing the festivals in live, like Pal Norte, like Corona Capital in Mexico City, and people they're listening to this new bands from everywhere around the world. There's a lot of international consumption in our countries, like big red example, in Colombia and Mexico. So again, if you're seeing traction, through strategize for you to go to those countries and learn the culture and play live, because yes, and you have, fortunately you have the platforms through, festivals and partnering with other artists and are putting together shows. That's the way as well. Play live.
Yeah. Again, I think this is live doesn't lie. You can do great in a studio, and that's all good. But I think playing it live is where you really can and see the impact on people. So I love how thriving the live music is a region. I think it's definitely a tool and a powerful way to really build a strategy and embrace that. So love it. I'm just checking any question from the audience. But if there isn't, I think my side, I'd love to hear quite briefly from your side if there is like a one advice you can give for labels or independent labels, independent artists that came from this session, is what they should kind of taking away from this and focusing on really build a sustainable career, because that's what it is about. It's not about chasing just the viral moments. It's to build a sustainable catalog and a sustainable career for the long run. So if you have like a few pieces of advice that you can share to the audience before I check if there are any more questions coming.
On my side, I would say that the takeaway is, if you want to, have a sustainable career, regardless if you're in the US, in the Latin market, understanding that, LATAM is not one market, it's 20 plus markets. I would say there are 5 elements you should take away from here. Number 1, artists are the new entrepreneurs. So when José talks about the different tactics on the marketing side, data side, it's all about thinking as a business owner, as a founder. So you got to stop thinking of yourself as a starving artist and become a music entrepreneur. Number 2, you got to understand relationships are key, and the way to protect those relationships is via contracts. Also, number 3 would be, you can create the best music in the world if you don't communicate your value proposition and your why to your market. There's not going to be a way for you to sustainably grow, right? So your constraint right now might be creating music. So create music. That's the first step. And the second step is to connect with people. So you have to communicate. That's the only way we can connect. And marketing is the bridge that helps you bridge that gap. Number 4, I would say, think about, numbers and likes and comments is, engagement is paid, super fans is better. So you might want to start thinking about, how are you provide sufficient value to your audience that some of them, they want to have a more relationship, want to be able to monetize that through concerts, through merch, to all of that. And number 5, understand and study the industry you're in. So if you understand how the music business works, how has evolved, and where it's going, you don't have to spend 8 hours studying it, but take apart some, 15-minute, 30-minute, learn something new about the music industry and the music business, and that's gonna help you, little by little, build a sustainable career in the music as a creator, artist, or producer, or an entrepreneur, a full-fledged entrepreneur, manager, label, publisher, etc.
Jose, anything to add to that?
Well, thank you, Alex. Nope, that's it.
Nailed it.
Listen, it's a 50-50 game. That's the reality of things. If you have time, I mean, as an artist, right, you have to do your music, of your creation process, and business. It's 50-50 equally. If you have time to do the 50% of the business side of things, it's because you don't have enough money. And if you have enough money, it's because you don't have time to do it, and you can hire somebody to do it for you, right? So there's no way around. You have to take care of. We're no longer developing artists. Managers, in my view, are the new record labels.
I agree.
But not all of them know how to do artist development the right way. If they somehow catch success, they better expedite the process and surround themselves with the right people at the right time, and build the foundation of that artist's career right away. Artists do not compromise process to serve somebody else's interest. Know your goals and objectives, right? At some point, you and your manager are getting into more complex deals, collaborations, partnerships, and all of a sudden you're building an enterprise, a record label, and you want to sign producers and you want to sign songwriters. Now you've learned the business and you're seeing the opportunity. You want to sign other artists, right? Then you need to scale your operation with an efficient and effective doing it. So think as an entrepreneur and do not compromise your creative process.
Nailed it again. Love it. I think that's a perfect place to wrap this webinar. Yeah, couldn't agree with all these points. Be applied to everybody across the world. So perfect way to finish this session. I want to say a big thank you to Jose for once again. We will be sending an email with the and translated in Spanish. So look out for that. From my end, I want also tell you that we will be diving deeper into LATAM, more specifically to Brazil in the next months. We've got our very own Luciana, who did an amazing session that will be on November the 19th. Thank you for everyone to joining and really appreciate your time, your insights, incredibly valuable. The word is gracias.
Eso. And I hope this is the beginning of a great community around the Latin American, community. And thank you, Alex, for joining us and being part of.